I'm Ed Dumancus, instructor of the Wing Chun Kung Fu School in Bothell, Washington. This recording is my backyard, out on my deck. It's about 50 degrees, so it's a little cold. Anyway, the reason for this video is about a little over a week ago, a couple of my students, or guys that I train with, have asked me if I do video training, online training. And I'm like, me practicing Wing Chun? And they're saying yes. And I'm like, well, I've not ever done this, and I'm not too sure how comfortable I feel, but I'm open to it. And so we went through a video conferencing last Saturday, I think, and it was okay. It didn't seem too complicated. I needed to get myself on Zoom. But then after that experience, I thought to myself, well, what about if I had like another to go along with the video instruction of just some dialogue, and this is where I came up to, well, I can do this, and I'm going to call it Wing Chun and a cup of tea. I'm not sure if you can see, but my cup is full. Why a cup of tea? Well, first a cup of tea just came out. So I just thought of that. But then I thought, oh God, there's got to be hundreds, if not thousands, of titles. A cup of tea, and then Wing Chun, of course. You can just type that in on the web, and you can get tons of information. So, trying to keep this a little unique. Wing Chun and a cup of tea might be something that we can focus on and make it a little bit easier, so people will recognize, oh, once this gets out, you can go and watch this video, because I think I will continue on. But also, there's a little bit more to the tea itself. As you can see, again, I'll show you. The cup's not that big, and believe me, my hands are they're hot. But this will be my timer. So once I'm finished, then you'll have to wait to the next video if you want to see more. What's on the video to discuss? Anything pertaining to martial arts. I'm a Wing Chun practitioner, of course, but my history goes beyond that. I started training, like many other young boys in Hawaii in the early 70s, in a school. The school I went to was Japan International, a karate school. I was in that school for quite some time. We trained in the elementary cafeteria, August Arms, and then moved. I don't know why. It's just a young kid. But in my teenage years, we moved from August Arms to another studio, which was kind of far away, considering that maybe August Arms would have been closer. But anyway, and after that, years later, I got involved in Tonglong, Praying Mantis, Northern style. Thai Mantis is actually the name of the school in Gardena, California. I don't think the school exists anymore. Sifu Scott Cohen, who taught at the time, I believe passed away. I'm not sure for what reasons. Health issues, I have no clue. But he was my Sifu. And his sales model, I guess, was no holds barred. And when I walked into the studio with a crack in the mirror, if I remember right, there was a hole in the wall. I thought, and it wasn't a big studio, this is the place to be. And I did learn. There was also a lot of jokes at the time. You can teach a monkey karate, but they were just jokes. And then when I left the school, I went looking for another Tonglong school, was unable to find one, and a friend of mine recommended a Wing Chun school out of Chinatown under Robert Young. I trained with him, and I've also trained with my senior brothers, John DiVigilio, trained with him a lot, and Randy Sanchez, I've trained with him as well. And both with their guidance, and with Sifu Young and Scott Cohen, and the several years of the karate practice has given me a pretty good foundation of body mechanics, self-defense applications. And it's funny because as I look back, I keep thinking to myself personally that each art got me moving in the direction to something better. Karate was great. I learned a lot. It was my uncle that got me involved in the school. He was one of the assistant instructors. And then the Tong Long, which I didn't like the sets too much. They were very difficult. Those long fist sets are really hard. I'm not quite built for them. Shorter, or short, a little chubby, you know, a little bit taller, lanky kind of person would do really well in the northern Tong Long set. Anyway, and then the Wing Chun. But today, there are a lot of videos of Wing Chun practitioners not doing very well in a ring. I guess this is where we're going. I'm headed at today, in today's discussion. Purely unintentional, but I want to keep it very fluid. And before I go any further, by all means, I'm willing to listen to and read your feedback and your comments. I don't particularly care for hate mail, but if you have something constructive to say, let me know. And I may bring it up the next time I have our next cup of tea. Anyway, I've trained in Hong Kong a few times. There was a point in my life where every summer I'd go there, train under Grandmaster Wong Long Ching, direct student of great Grandmaster Yip Man in Hong Kong. I've also gone to Fat-Shan, some people say the home of Wing Chun, and watched. I always, every time I went there, I've always tried to keep an open book, be very humble. I didn't want to shut anyone down from sharing any information with me. Some things I thought were very impressive, and some I thought they could use some help. I think, unfortunately, for the Wing Chun artists today, especially out of China, they have yet to evolve. While many of the other schools went from a traditional school to a modified school to a MMA school, it is natural for Western thinking to try to improve. It's just the way we think. While in China, maybe even Japan, I can't speak for the other areas, Asian areas, they probably hold very dear to tradition. I have nothing against tradition. I'm a traditionalist, so to speak. I teach traditional Wing Chun as I know it. But there are factors that make up what I can consider a complete school. And so, and I can go over that right now with you. And the comparisons, by the way. So, the MMA school and the traditional school really does not have much difference, except for the training concepts, the philosophy of how whatever is being taught is being taught. On the traditional side, a good, sound traditional school, if the goal is ultimately to teach hand-to-hand combat, survival, self-defense. Ultimately, the school should have 3 major components. Number 1, structure. You can call it sets. You can call it forms. You can call it katas. It doesn't matter what the name is. Open hand techniques, free open hand techniques. It doesn't matter what you call it as long as there's some form or method of teaching someone new, and even an experienced person, some basic movements, how to throw a punch, how to throw a block, you know? And, but that you can't just have that. You also need touch drills, hands touching, people feeling each other, you know? What does a punch feel like? What does a block feel like? How does the hands approach each other? You know, what do I see when you move? This is really, and it can be very, very basic, from really light touching to a little more aggressive touching, close hand-to-hand stuff. And then you have your third component, the distancing drills. Well, what do you do when you have your hands out and the guy punches you? How do you cover? What do you do? What's your follow-up? What about if you decide to initiate? If all of a sudden you don't feel comfortable, what do you do? Do you stand there? Do you attack? And if you do attack, how do you attack? That's the traditional side. And that would be what I consider a good school. After all, I've been in 3 different types, right? I mean, you could look at Wing Chun as maybe a Southern art. Okay, so I've trained in Tonglong, a Northern art. And then I don't believe in hard or soft, but then the Japanese art. So now, what about the MMA? Same thing, right? The structure. Okay, someone new comes into the school, never thrown a punch. Well, you have to teach them how to throw a punch. But before you can teach how to throw a punch, you have to teach them how do you get in a stance. Most people who've never had any hand training, don't even know other than what they see on television. And even then, that's not enough, right? So that structure in an MMA school, very, very similar, just taught differently. And then you have the touch drills. Okay, punch, 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 you know. What do you do? Cover up, you know. And then distancing drills. Oh my God, you're outside the hand distance. Maybe there's footwork that's required. A front thrust, snap kick, front thrust kick, you know. Maybe the side kick, low kick, you know, whatever that is. These things get taught in MMA school. So for the MMA practitioner, you probably learn a lot quicker because on the traditionalist side, there are these forms, and there are schools out there that just focus on forms. And then the practitioner is still left out with, what do I do with these forms? How do I move? And then the fear factor comes in when someone stands right in front of them. So let's see where I'm at. I still have, this is, remember now, once I'm finished with my tea, we're basically finished for today. Halfway there. So when I watch YouTube, I've always stayed away from it. Normally I go on because a practitioner, a young student that practices with me says, hey Sifu, go take a look at this video. What do you think? And of course, I don't think too much about it when it's not a good thing, right? Whether it's Wing Chun, Karate, Taekwondo, everyone has their weaknesses, and that's the beauty of the MMA school, is to learn to overcome these things that we all have. We have 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. So of course, all these moves are going to be very, very similar, right? The question is, how do I conceal my weaknesses better than the other guy, right? How do I approach him or her and conceal those weaknesses? But there's one thing I will say that the MMA school lacks. So are you a young child, 10, 15 years old, I'm not too sure if I'd recommend the MMA school just yet. I might want to focus on the traditional school, especially the 10-year-old, because what the MMA school lacks is the focus on discipline, respect, humility, restraint. And there's many more. Through contact, through practice, you should learn these humility. But when you are practicing only to just hit, block, hit, kick, block, hit, kick, there's no room there. At least I have not heard of one yet. And as soon as I hear of a MMA school that says, you know what, I'm going to sit down, maybe meditate at the end of the class, or maybe focus on some major things. These are rules that we live by. Then I will concede what I just said. But today, that doesn't exist. So the traditionalist, the traditional school needs to let go of the old way of teaching, right? And teach the skill. Many of them, even the instructors, don't have. And then the MMA school needs to somewhere focus on humility. So, but in the end, I guess the goal really comes down to, what does the practitioner want? An adult, not a 10-year-old, not a 15-year-old, but an adult comes into school. I would imagine many want to learn self-defense, in which case the MMA school will teach you what you need. But so will the traditional school, but it might take a little longer time. And hopefully, over time, you get to put the gear on and get to experience real life sparring. Anyway, I think I have one more step left. I have a little left. So anyway, I think this is probably a good start for this Wing Chun and a cup of tea. I want to have many more. I also want to hear feedback from you. So I'm going to say goodbye for today. I'll have my last sip. And please share your feedback with me. Again, Ed Dumancus, Fei Mong Wing Chun Kung Fu, Bothell, Washington. Till next time.